Part 95. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 967. Lu Chang'an understood Zhou Shuling's difficult mood last year when she tried to force Zhou Dongdong to go to kindergarten through coercion, inducements, beatings, coaxing, kidnapping and other methods. But Zhou Dongdong didn't want to go to kindergarten. There was a problem that some children in kindergarten had no tutors and their parents were of low quality. In Xiongda, besides Lu Chang'an, could anyone bully Zhu Huntang? As long as she didn't skip class and sat obediently in the classroom, even if she was taking selfies, retouching pictures, reading comics, playing games, or even playing with Lu Chang'an like a pillow doll, Lu Chang'an would not beat her. The walk from Bai to the teaching building was not far. When she first started walking, Zhu Huntang had to push Lu Chang'an a few steps before she could walk a few steps. But when she was about a third of the way, she knew it would not help, so she realized the truth is on the ground. Lu Chang'an, do you think this willow tree looks like Professor Lu? As they walked, Zhu Huntang pointed at a willow tree and said to Lu Chang'an. The willow tree is like Professor Lu. Lu Chang'an took a look and saw that the willow tree was the golden willow tree. It was the golden willow tree that was so old that it had only a glimmer of life left, and was saved by Lu Chang'an. At that time, Nuan also said that if Lu Chang'an could save it, she would hang it upside down on the willow tree. Later, after passing by the willow tree that had come to life many times, Nuan naturally forgot about hanging the willow tree upside down. Lu Chang'an is a tolerant and generous person, so he didn't mention it specifically, lest she hang a willow tree upside down one day and refuse to perform a small tree root wrapping the next day. Didn't you hear it talking in the spring breeze? Don't use an artistic tone, you don't deserve it. Damn old man, are you looking down on people too much? Before I met you, I was also an artistic girl, but you forced me to become a mount and a BAA. Haha, artistic girl. The second time I saw you, you told me that Jing Ke stabbed Prince Dan 3 times. Was it me who forced you to do so? It was you who showed your true colors. You were a fool to begin with, Lu Chang'an said angrily. Zhu Huntang's first impression can easily deceive people, especially since she often takes selfies with highly professional and relatively niche books. Just after hearing her say Jing Ke stabbed Prince Dan 3 times, Lu Chang'an knew that her true nature had not changed since they met last year, but was only becoming more and more exposed. Humph. This tree is saying that it only regained its second spring after meeting you. Just like Professor Lu. After Zhu Huntang finished speaking, he kicked Lu Chang'an. After kicking her, she strode forward, because she was the only one in the world who dared to kick Lu Chang'an so boldly and then still be alive and kicking. She was immediately proud of Yang Yang, and she felt a little bit invincible. How do you know I saved this tree? Lu Chang'an looked at Zhu Huntang doubtfully from behind. Zhu Huntang has an advantage that is unknown but often shown in details, that is, she pays great attention to information collection and can realize how important rich and accurate information is, although she often takes advantage of her few advantages. 1. What he does is not serious. Lu Chang'an never told Zhu Huntang that he had saved trees, but it was normal for Zhu Huntang to find out when collecting information about him. The fact that Lu Chang'an was Lu Jianxi was also discovered by Zhu Huntang herself, but her analysis and logic at the time were messy, and she finally concluded that Lu Jianxi planted many sycamore trees at Hunan University because he had lost many of his wives. But what Lu Chang'an now suspects is that she did not use information collection to obtain the truth, but that she has the ability to sense Lu Chang'an's breath, just like Shang Guan Dandan. Isn't this simple? After I turn into a sheep, I can command the entire nature. The trees are also my subordinates. I can even make all the sycamore trees you plant commit suicide. Are you afraid? Nonsense, let's talk serious. Actually, I can just feel that the willow tree smells like you, and it is a bit too vibrant, more energetic than the trees next to it. Just like the woman you have slept with, it feels a bit different from ordinary humans. I can't tell you what the specific difference is. Zhu Huntang thought for a while and sighed, this is probably because of my keen spiritual sense as a fairy. Lu Chang'an gave her a slap in the face. He was really full of filthy words and lacked the cultivation and elegance of a young lady. And Nuan also occasionally said some vulgar and dirty words, but at that time, the little fun between lovers, like Zhu Huntang, was how to talk to your father. I just discovered that Professor Ling's skin is better than that of ordinary women. It is considered top-notch for her age, but the gap between her and Professor Lu is not small. In An Nuan's family, I am delicate and clever, unknown to others, and brave. After careful observation, Professor Liu's skin is almost the same as that of An Nuan. After she took off her clothes in the other fields, she became even more conspicuous, and her whole body glowed like a tender lamb. After Zhu Huntang finished speaking, he looked at Lu Chang'an with a heartbroken expression. As her stepfather, as the person who guided and disciplined her, he was so morally bankrupt and insane, turning Professor Lu into a dragon spirit pot hooligan. What I mean, do you understand? Do you still need me to tell you what you did to Professor Lu? How can you be my elder? How can you set an example for me? How can you teach me the correct concept of love, family? What about your outlook on life and your outlook on life? I am really disappointed with you. I think you are no longer qualified to be the leader of the 9 provinces Fenglai Sword section. The supreme sect leader has decided to expel you from the door and take the post personally. Before Zhu Huntang could finish her words, she was hit hard on the head by Lu Chang'an. She screamed in pain and was beaten all the way to the teaching building by Lu Chang'an. All the classmates knew that Zhu Huntang was often punished by Lu Chang'an, but it was still a bit strange to come into the classroom crying like this only 2 or 3 times. They all looked at and talked about it, and even posted on the social media app. Another one came in today. I saw Lu Chang'an beating Zhu Huntang and so on. Lu Chang'an was originally a student master. There were many people who paid attention to him, and even more people did not dare to provoke him. Zhu Huntang was originally the character of the rich and wealthy daughter, and was a bit aloof. Now, incidents of being beaten by Lu Chang'an are revealed from time to time. It makes people think that she is a bit naive and cute, and she has gained a lot of fans. Aren't being beaten supposed to be pitiful and attract sympathy and fans? The key is that Lu Chang'an didn't beat her up, but after she was beaten, she didn't have a long memory and would quickly go over and continue to provoke Lu Chang'an. Many people know that when Zhu Huntang gets beaten, it's usually not Lu Chang'an who is cruel, but her. Ask for it? After entering the classroom, Lu Chang'an sat in the back as usual. As long as Zhu Huntang did not follow him, Qin's Haiqiang, Sun Shutong and Wei Xuanyi would also sit next to him. By the second semester, everyone was more confident, and Sun Shutong and Wei Xuanyi no longer faced Lu Chang'an with a slightly repulsive or unconvinced mentality. Zhu Huntang sat next to Yan Qingcheng, pointed to the stool and asked Yan Qingcheng to help her lay a small mat before sitting down, and then fell into Yan Qingcheng's arms, feeling aggrieved. After rubbing it, she found that the bra Yan Qingcheng was wearing was relatively small. It's hard, not as soft as the arms of Bai Hui, Qin Yinan, and others. I feel a little dissatisfied, so let's just let it go. What happened today? Yan Qingcheng saw Zhu Huntang aggrieved, with tears in his eyes, and his big eyes and long eyelashes fluttering. I looked pitiful and asked gently. Although I have a fair guess, Zhu Huntang most likely went to provoke Lu Chang'an, provoke him, ridicule him, and even tried to plot to frame Lu Chang'an. It is not worthy of sympathy, but who made Zhu Huntang look so beautiful and cute? Is she a little fairy who is loved by everyone just based on her appearance? I suspected that Lu Chang'an had an improper relationship with a willow tree, so he beat me up, Zhu Huntang said implicitly. She couldn't tell Yan Qingcheng directly. She had no evidence, but she found out that Lu Chang'an had cultivated him again. A dragon spirit pot hooligan, right? Lu Yuang's name cannot be revealed. Zhu Huntang still wants to maintain the reputation of Zhu Fenglai sword section. When he inherits the position of the sect leader in the future, he will carry it forward. In the end, the reputation of the sect is due to his original promotion of Lu Chang'an's loot secrets. And if it's destroyed, what should we do? Zhu Huntang is already making plans. When she becomes the head of the sect, Bai Hui and Yan Qingcheng are the two talents who must be attracted. Bai Hui can help Jianmen with external publicity, wear ancient clothes and dance with ancient dance music, which is very easy to get out of the circle. If you invest more resources, you can put on a variety show, a party, or something like that. There must be people in the sect who are doing serious things. For example, in the Zhu Fenglai Jianmen sect now, there is no one who is doing serious things. Pregnant women, children, dogs, and the queen mother who has nothing to do and drinks water and deceives eggs from a healthcare product company. What can this do? Cause. Oh, by the way, Lu Chang'an said last time that the old tea cake Li Hongfang also joined, but does Li Hongfang have any other specialties besides a big butt? Twisting and swaying next to Lu Chang'an all day long to show off, Zhu Huntang doesn't have much opinion on Li Hongfang. This is just an objective statement quoted from her good sister Qin Yinan. Yan Qingcheng is the person who does business, similar to Zhu Huntang, who has assistants like Zhongqing and Jin Xiaomei every day. And Zhou Shuling, in the future, Zhu Fenglai sword sect will be covered with hidden stakes all over the country. Zhou Shuling will be the one who controls these hidden stakes. Just like the brothels in the past were intelligence agencies, the headquarters of the brothel also has a person who is loyal to the protagonist. Like a madam who is deeply in love and asks for nothing in return. You suspect that Lu Chang'an had an improper relationship with a willow tree, then you are really not being beaten unjustly. Whoever is framed for such a senseless scandal would not beat you. Yan Qingcheng's tone of voice was still soft, but then she thought something was wrong. This kind of thing is too ridiculous to become a scandal at all. No one would believe it, so Lu Chang'an should not be angry. Yan Qingcheng couldn't help but look at Zhu Huntang suspiciously, and lowered his voice. What you made up was not him and Lu Shu, but him and Professor Lu, right? Zhu Huntang was startled and quickly pressed his belly. No, he was a fairy. There were no bug babies in fairies' stomachs, so Yan Qingcheng was definitely not the bug baby that escaped from her belly. Could she be able to read minds? Seeing Zhu Huntang's expression, Yan Qingcheng knew that he had guessed wrong, and that it was also close to the side, inseparable from 5566. I was with my mother last night. My mother said that when you talked to Professor Lu Jianxi, you were neither old nor young. You didn't seem to have any respect for your elders, and you didn't shy away from talking about your elders. I felt it's not impossible for you to arrange Lu Chang'an and Professor Lu. You used to make excuses for your mother and Lu Chang'an. Yan Qingcheng expressed his analysis and ideas. There was a classmate named Sunangxiu in the class last year, and he was also familiar with Zhu Huntang. At that time, Lu Chang'an, Sunangxiu, and Zhu Huntang often talked together. Yan Qingcheng heard this. Zhu Huntang shouted there that Lu Chang'an must have had an affair with her mother, which made the classmates look at each other in shock. With such a criminal record, it is unlikely that Zhu Huntang will arrange for Lu Chang'an and Lu Shu, but it is very possible for him and Professor Lu to get beaten up. Hello everyone, this is Xiahua, which has not been updated in 2022. Please vote for me. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 968. Zhu Huntang couldn't help but sit up straight. Yan Qingcheng had an average mind anyway, and it was not as fun as pushing the orange cat named Saint Girl to roll around on the ground. Zhu Huntang has always had a somewhat different attitude toward Yan Qingcheng and Bai Hui, even though they were both classmates who got to know each other after entering Xiongda University. First of all, Bai Hui and she are both fairies with similar interests, hobbies, and aesthetics. They both want to get something from Lu Chang'an and have many things in common. Secondly, Bai Hui doesn't pay attention to Zhu Huntang's studies at all. She belongs to the type of sheep friends with bears. Zhu Huntang and Bai Hui always have fun playing together. The most important point is that Yan Qingcheng is not easy to control and does not listen to Zhu Huntang very much. Even if he is worthy of training, he will be like Zhongqing in the future and likes to make his own decisions. Don't think that if Yan Qingcheng doesn't have a backer like Zhongqing, Lu Chang'an may become Yan Qingcheng's backer, because Professor Lu Jianxi's other stepdaughter may be the Yan Qingcheng he wants to recognize. It's just that the face is vaguely unclear now, and the truth is clear. Yan Hui is not as good as her mother, who sacrificed her sex, betrayed her daughter, and occupied the position of the Cold Palace. The position of the Cold Palace is also a position in the harem. Non-staff people who want to enter the palace have no way. Look at Bai Hu. For these reasons, Zhu Huntang did not try much to play with Yan Qingcheng. Now Zhu Huntang is even more wary. Yan Qingcheng is too smart. Zhu Huntang was just talking casually and joking, but she actually analyzed the truth. This made Zhu Huntang think about it. Had she said anything before, and would she unconsciously reveal important information to Yan Qingcheng? By the way, that day at Nanshan Ranch, I had a video chat with the bad old man and asked him to play with me. Later, Yan Qingcheng saw something wrong. Zhu Huntang also performed a superb face-changing art to prove that she was indeed suspicion arose. What a waste. In the future, you must be more careful and vigilant, use your own talents and don't let Yan Qingcheng know that as long as you hold Lu Chang'an's thigh, you will be invincible. This is what you said, not me. I just think that as biology students, we need to study cross-species reproductive relationships. Is there anything wrong with Lu Chang'an having a relationship with a willow tree? Zhu Huntang said casually. By the way, I looked at the cup sizes of the female students in the front row. They were not wearing very thin clothes in the spring, so it was hard to see. I didn't know if any of them were suitable for Zhu Huntang to use as a meat pad. You want to study this, as basic knowledge, first understand reproductive isolation. Yan Qingcheng shook her head, but she planned to discuss Lu Enliu's issues with Zhu Huntang in more depth, lowering her voice. Lu Chang'an, and do you have any evidence about Professor Lu? Of course Zhu Huntang has no evidence, but why does he need evidence? Only the judge needs evidence, which to a certain extent shows the weakness of the judge, but Zhu Huntang does not need evidence. She is just gossip. Groundless gossip, even if it is true, cannot be regarded as fact if it is just imagined. Rule out 99% of the impossibility. Since I have thought of it, you have a 1% possibility, then it is also possible. Since you ask that, you must be suspicious. Can you tell me your thoughts? Zhu Huntang was already wary and naturally refused to be easily fooled by Yan Qingcheng. Yan Qingcheng was stunned for a moment. Her thoughts were quite clear, but she had a lot of doubts. She didn't know where to start. But didn't Zhu Huntang like to speak ill of Lu Chang'an behind his back? Why did you suddenly shut up? Have you been beaten down today? This possibility is relatively small. Who wouldn't break up the house after seeing a husky being beaten? Unless it becomes a pot of dog meat. Well, it's not Lu Chang'an that I suspect. Yan Qingcheng put her skull bag between her and Tong 11 next door, moved closer to Zhu Huntang, and lowered her voice. I think Professor Lu Jianxi might. We are old acquaintances with Professor Lu. Yan Qingcheng is not as rude as Zhu Huntang. She speaks ill of her elders behind their backs and arranges them randomly without any psychological pressure, so she speaks more reservedly. A suave, elegant, and refined man like Lu Jianxi is an old acquaintance with a charming woman. Everyone knows what will happen. Zhu Huntang nodded, indicating that she understood what Yan Qingcheng meant. She meant that Lu Jianxi had screwed Lu Yuang. This is normal. After all, the identity behind Lu Jianxi is Lu Chang'an, the former emperor who was personally certified by the Queen Mother as both obscene and promiscuous. When Zhu Huntang studied history, he discovered that when emperors in ancient times met women they liked when they went out, they would rape them directly. The more sophisticated ones would bring them back to the palace, while the less sophisticated ones would have sex in caves, commonly known as mountain cavemen. Old acquaintances are normal. Although Professor Lu Jianxi kept a low profile at Hunan University back then, he was the man who had lost many wives, so he planted so many sycamore trees. Everyone knows this, so we know each other all over the world. Zhu Huntang knew Yan Qing Cheng meant it, but she couldn't see her hesitating. She didn't even dare to say that Lu Jianxi had screwed Lu Yuang. How could she do such a big thing? Zhu Huntang is a person who does big things. She provokes Lu Chang'an every day, which is enough to prove her courage. With her courage, in the era of the romance of the Three Kingdoms, she could be sworn in with Zhujiang and others in Daowen and lead them to fight Three Kingdoms warriors. Every war at that level is guaranteed to be won. I mean. Yan Qingcheng pursed her lips. Zhu Huntang actually started to pretend to be confused. She didn't believe that Zhu Huntang didn't dare to arrange Professor Lu Jianxi and Lu Yuang. On the surface, Zhu Huntang didn't even know her mother. Don't even take it seriously. By the way, I remember Bai Hui said that she had read Professor Lu Jianxi's diary, which may have recorded some things between him and Lu Yuang. Yan Qingcheng remembered that Bai Hui had said this when they were at Nanshan Ranch. She wanted to show off that she even knew about Lu Chang'an's father, but was killed by Yan Qingcheng instead. Well, you should go find Bai Hui and find out. Zhu Huntang nodded, then stood up with a small cushion. You actually gossiped about the elders like this, and you are spoiling me. After saying that, she ran to the back of the classroom angrily, laughed hee twice, sat down next to Lu Chang'an, adjusted her sitting posture a few times, and then snapped her fingers. The bread man sitting in the corner of the classroom brought a box and handed it to Zhu Huntang. Lu Chang'an didn't want to pay attention to her at first, but this box looked full of technology. I don't know what kind of material it was made of. It was light and strong. It also had a password system similar to the B-Gate. As soon as Zhu Huntang touched it, a box appeared on the desk. Projected keyboard. Zhu Huntang entered 123,456 on the projection keyboard, and the box opened in response. Lu Chang'an wiped the corners of his eyes and resisted the urge to force her to change the password. He now began to suspect that the core password of Zhu Huntang's security system in Bailong Center, which was said to be worth over 100 million, was probably 123456. If she cannot set such a simple password, she will ask the manufacturing company to change the settings. If the other party does not agree, she will probably unsubscribe. Who can refuse such a large and wealthy customer? Can't you imagine the password? Zhu Huntang came over, tilted his head and said in Lu Chang'an's ear. If it were in the comics, Zhu Huntang would have been slapped against the wall and slowly slid down, with the sound of scratching and sliding down. Lu Chang'an didn't want to be too irritable or hit the children in the classroom, so he used his excellent air control skills to suppress his depression. Zhu Huntang opened the box, which contained her class schedule and a textbook for today's class. In addition, there was a 100 ml bottle of drinking water, a Windows system game console, and a customized selfie camera. A smoke bomb, pepper spray, a bag of chocolates, notebook, and pen. What's mixed in there? A smoke bomb? Lu Chang'an reached out and took the smoke bomb, put it into his bag, and ignored her. Zhu Huntang came to class. As long as she sat in the classroom, Lu Chang'an would no longer try to interfere with her and focus all his energy on class. Superior. Zhu Huntang didn't really care that Lu Chang'an took away the smoke bomb. Anyway, the smoke bomb was of little use. It was mainly used when Zhu Huntang was extremely bored and wanted to create chaos and skip class. She took out the game console. There were very few truly excellent Microsoft system consoles on the market. They were either too big, had problems with software and hardware adaptation, or had insufficient performance to play games, and so on. Seeing her holding a game console attracted Qin's Haiqiang's attention. He watched Zhu Huntang hum her through Lu Chang'an. Although he didn't play Santengzi, a mobile game, it didn't mean he didn't like playing games. The teacher walked into the classroom and started class. While listening to the class, Lu Chang'an took out his cell phone to look at it and found that Bai Hui had sent him a message. I just saw that my cousin had hot pot with you last night. Because we had such luxurious meals in Nanshan, now I really want to eat Juncha hot pot with the fireworks. If you want to eat, go ahead and have a hot pot date with your cousin when you have time. Lu Chang'an replied to Bai Hui's text message in his heart. I am really becoming more and more enthusiastic. Faced with such meaningless text messages, I reply enthusiastically from the bottom of my heart. He turned around and took a look and found that Zhu Huntang was playing the game very attentively, so he hit her on the head 3 times, and then he started to listen to the class seriously. Zhu Huntang rubbed his head angrily, but ignored Lu Chang'an. This bad old man was extremely bad, and he would hit people for no reason when he had nothing to do. She was happily driving her car, killing, robbing and doing all kinds of evil, so she had no time to pay attention to him. Zhu Huntang played the game for a while and got stuck on a task. Qin's Haiqiang said he could help, so Zhu Huntang handed the console to Qin's Haiqiang. Qin's Haiqiang quickly helped her pass the test, but Zhu Huntang no longer wanted to play, so he gave the handheld phone to Qin's Haiqiang, took out a pen and notebook from the box, and started designing her Meilin Tianxia hot air balloon. After class, Qin's Haiqiang wanted to return the handheld phone to Zhu Huntang. He thought that Zhu Huntang's "I gave it to you to play with" just now meant that he would stop playing and return it to her. How can that be done? You can't even buy this thing. Qin's Haiqiang was surprised and flattered. Zhu Huntang often gave cosmetics and skincare products to girls, but the male classmates did not receive gifts. Oh, then put it in the box. Zhu Huntang waved his hand and said, don't forget it. It will have to be cleaned later. Zhu Huntang is not the kind of extravagant and lustful young lady. Have you seen other people playing with it? Yes, she didn't throw it away casually. Qin's Haiqiang was stunned again, his neck stiffened as he thought about what a normal conversation should be like. As expected, only Lu Chang'an could communicate with Zhu Huntang. However, he really didn't want to suddenly accept such a valuable thing from someone else, so he put the handheld device back and thought about it for a while. The picture was really good and the operation was very smooth. It turned out that there were no excellent Microsoft handheld devices. After 2 classes, Zhu Huntang was about to sneak away quickly while Lu Chang'an was talking to Qin's Haiqiang to prevent him from driving her to follow Yan Qingcheng in class. As soon as she walked out of the classroom, she heard someone bringing 2 policemen to look for Lu Chang'an. Excitedly, they stopped and watched. Zaiwa, who has not stopped updating in 2022, is asking for monthly votes while eating wool. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 969. Zhu Huntang is jumping up and down, her skirt is swaying, the lace is swaying with beautiful light and shadow, her beautiful calves are slender and straight, and the gems dotted on the gorgeous high heels bloom with luxurious colors in the slanting sunlight. Children, let's play together. The 2 policemen were attracted by Zhu Huntang because she was too close and squeezed in between the 2 policemen, like I want to see if the police have found me. The criminals who returned to the scene to watch the fun. Relevant video data shows that the vast majority of criminals who come back to watch the fun and are caught are usually caught by getting in the face of the police. Have you ever seen a child who is almost 1.8 meters tall, Zhu Huntang said angrily. The two policemen were both about 1.8 meters tall. They looked down at Zhu Huntang and looked at her sideways like Lu Chang'an usually did. You're not even 1.8 meters tall. You're only 1.63 meters tall. The slightly fat policeman glanced at him. The old policeman's eyes were very poisonous and he accurately estimated Zhu Huntang's height. I'm 1.65 meters tall when I wake up in the morning, with high heels. I'm almost 1.8 meters tall. It's afternoon now. The thinner policeman looked at the time. The fat policeman tapped the notebook in his hand and signaled the thin policeman to ignore this stupid little girl. Are you going to arrest Lu Chang'an? Zhu Huntang asked curiously. When watching TV dramas, there are often scenes of prison visits. Zhu Huntang has always wanted to experience it, but firstly, she has never been arrested and sent to prison, and secondly, she does not know any friends who have been in prison. If Lu Chang'an is arrested, Zhu Huntang plans to set up a prison visitation committee to arrange for his harem members to visit the prison, and to control when they can visit the prison and who comes first. This is also a kind of power that will help Zhu Huntang accumulate capital when we usurp the throne in the future. It turned out that they knew Lu Chang'an. The two policemen looked at each other and were willing to talk to Zhu Huntang again. No, let's investigate something. Do you know Lu Chang'an? What is your relationship with him? Is she his girlfriend? The fat policeman looked at Zhu Huntang. He heard that Lu Chang'an's girlfriend was very beautiful. I am him, I am his brother, and he is my brother. Zhu Huntang actively wanted to participate. I tell you, we have a deep brotherhood. As long as it is something he does, basically everyone is involved, especially those things that are lawless, heinous, and help Lu commit crimes. I am also a part of it. The two policemen were stunned for a moment. The fat policeman's hands shook and he opened his mouth to speak, but for a moment he didn't know what to say. If something really happened, whether it was her fault or not, it would be best to arrest her and stay there for a few days to tease the police. Are they your students too? The thin policeman said to the teacher who brought them over. The teacher is Yu General. One of his tasks is to take care of Qin Yanan, who just took over the job as a counselor last year. Qin Yanan is the counselor of the biology department, but Yu Gen is the one who really does the work. He knows the first year students in the biology department better than Qin Yanan does. Yes, no matter what, this matter has nothing to do with her, Yu Gen said quickly. Zhu Huntang, do you still have classes? If you don't have classes, go back. Yu Gen was just leading the way. Lu Chang'an would be fine anyway. Even if something happened, Yu Gen would just make a phone call to report the matter. A grassroots counselor like him couldn't make any decisions on how to deal with Lu Chang'an's affairs. But if Zhu Huntang suddenly got involved, Yu Gen might be involved. Why didn't you stop other students from getting involved in the matter that came to Lu Chang'an? You took the police directly to find Lu Chang'an. Isn't that too showy and too disrespectful of the impact on students? Lu Chang'an was a related person, and no one knew whether he had any direct upper-level connections, but his cousin was Qin Yanan, and his affairs were Qin Yanan's affairs, and Qin Yanan's affairs. Xiongnan couldn't do anything to her. Zhu Huntang is different. Zhu Huntang can't even be said to be a related party. It is the same existence as Party A. If Lu Chang'an is in trouble, it is just a trouble for the school leaders, but if Zhu Huntang is in trouble, it may affect the positions, jobs, project funds, and prospects of many people above and below him. Yu Gen always knew that as soon as get out of class was over, Zhu Huntang would walk faster than anyone else, and even run away before get out of class was over. Who knew that when she heard Lu Chang'an's name, she would jump over like a rabbit with pricked ears and hit the barrel of a gun. I have no classes, but cooperating with the investigation is the obligation of every citizen. Zhu Huntang actively cooperated. That is the obligation of every citizen. You don't even have an ID card. Let's go quickly, Yu Gen urged, but he was not impatient. Zhu Huntang was in the School of Biology, and the teacher benefits of the School of Biology during the winter vacation last year were the best. In the whole school, counselors like Eugen all took the Bailong Center shopping card with a denomination of 200,000 yuan. Some people used it themselves. Eugen's was sold to a rich woman in the school for 180,000 yuan. Don't I have an ID card? Zhu Huntang turned his head depressedly. A bread man immediately came over to answer Zhu Huntang's question. Miss Third, you are using a pass now, but you have already met the conditions for applying for a residence permit. It is basically the same as an ID card. Well, then I have to actively cooperate. As a Taiwanese living and studying on the mainland, while enjoying rights, I must also fulfill various obligations. Zhu Huntang nodded. Only then did the two policemen understand that this little girl, who looked like a child, didn't even have an ID card and was just joining in the fun. The obligation you have to fulfill is not to interfere with our handling of the case. The two policemen ignored her completely and walked to the police car parked not far away, signaling Eugen to go to the classroom and bring Lu Chang'an over for questioning. Zhu Huntang looked both ways, then followed Eugen into the classroom, then pulled Lu Chang's sleeves and followed him to see the police. Do you know Jin Ho? The fat policeman asked Lu Chang'an bluntly. What kind of monkey is a golden monkey? Didn't you have a golden dog before? Is it a golden monkey similar to that golden dog? Zhu Huntang also asked. The golden dog Zhu Huntang mentioned was a tiger charm souvenir Lu Chang'an bought at the Shonan Museum last year. When he put it in his bag to go to class, Zhu Huntang dug it out and said it was a golden dog. Lu Chang'an, can you ask her not to interfere with our investigation? The thin policeman said unbearably. Taiwanese people in Juncha are not like in some places. Well, it's nothing, but she is a bit annoying. I really wanted to take some measures against her, but I felt it was a bit excessive, and I couldn't bear to do it. If the little girl didn't have this mouth, she would still be very beautiful and cute. Lu Chang'an held Zhu Huntang in his arms, covered her mouth, and replied, I know him. He chased my girlfriend in front of me, brought a bowl of stew and squatted in front of my girlfriend's house in the middle of the night to wait for her. Then I couldn't beat him. So I beat him calmly, crushed the earthenware soup bowl and fed it to his mouth. The two policemen nodded. They already knew about this from another student Niu Bang. However, the parties concerned did not report the case regarding Lu Chang'an's gold purchase, nor did it cause serious harm that required judicial intervention. It could only be regarded as a minor dispute. They did not find that Lu Chang'an was the culprit of Jin Ho's sudden madness. To them, they believed that Jin Ho's madness was a matter of doctors, not the police. It was just that the president of Xiang University called the police and said that his son was driven crazy. Can they not come to investigate? After asking a few questions, the two policemen left. Lu Chang'an waved goodbye to their police car and let Zhu Huntang go. You did such a bad thing and you didn't take me to play. Zhu Huntang was furious and his eyes widened. It was really depressing to not be involved in this kind of thing. Am I doing something bad? I just went to educate teacher Tony. What teacher Tony? Well, we usually call those who do hair work in the hair salon here teacher Tony. Jin Ho wants to dye my hair green, so naturally it is teacher Tony, Lu Chang'an explained. Ha ha ha. Zhu Huntang laughed, but immediately turned serious. Ever since we rescued the vampire lady with saliva, we are an inseparable combination of immortal and immortal goat. You must take me with you wherever you go. You really want to be my follower. Lu Chang'an didn't bother to let her realize clearly that it was his blood that saved the vampire lady, and it had nothing to do with her saliva. The cognitive impairment is Zhou Dongdong, Shang Guan Dandan, the inherent attributes of these stupid little animals. Zhu Huntang. You are the big fairy sheep and I am the little fairy sheep. Of course we have to play together. Zhu Huntang hugged Lu Chang'an's arm and rubbed his cheek against his arm. He bleated twice and laughed again. Yes. Sometimes, I feel like you are just like my biological father, and I can't help but want to call you daddy. Lu Chang'an turned his head and looked at Zhu Huntang with a complicated expression. Do you want to tell her the truth? I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 970. When describing a person's excellent work ability, it is often said that he has rich experience. Many times, keen intuition, meticulous observation, and decisive judgment are often based on rich experience. Lu Chang'an is experienced in many aspects of life, such as cooking, delivering babies, setting bones, telling fortunes, reading, singing, mating, arranging weddings, arranging porcelain and abortion and other daily events. But there was one thing he didn't have much experience with: how to deal with Zhu Huntang, an unprecedented new creature. Without experience, there is no way to judge whether what you want to do is right or wrong, and you will be entangled and hesitant. He actually got a new experience, a new feeling. Whenever Zhu Huntang called out "Dad," even if it wasn't "I know you are my dad" at all, just shouting for fun, it made him feel uncomfortable. Lu Chang'an felt a strange feeling in his heart. Men are all good at being fathers. This was a topic he and Zhongqing discussed just yesterday. Of course, it was just an ambiguous topic with a touch of interest. I wanted to be a father and find a place to put my father's love overflowing. True father's love has nothing to do with these playful things. It is powerful and gentle. It has the ability to move mountains and seas, but when she let her high blood pressure reach its peak, it burst out with great force and still suppressed it. Even if his heart exploded, he would not really hurt her at all. Facing Zhu Huntang, Lu Chang'an's fatherly love actually didn't know how to express it. It was just the instinct of licking a calf. He wanted her to know, but Zhu Huntang's, this guy, now only had to ride on his neck to eat and drink. If she really knew that Lu Chang'an was indeed a father in a certain sense, wouldn't she still act like heaven and earth? When the time comes, Lu Chang'an and Su Mei together may not be able to discipline her. Why is your expression so complicated? Could it be that you actually have some unrealistic delusions about me, and my sincere and pure feelings make you feel ashamed and have the problem that in fact, I want to marry you, but you just the humiliation of wanting to be my daughter? Zhu Huntang threw away Lu Chang'an's arm and crossed his hands in front of his chest. I don't blame you, after all, a peerless beautiful girl like me. Overflowing fatherly love? The feeling of licking a calf? The blood in Lu Chang'an's body suddenly surged, and his body was raised an inch due to the impact. He raised Zhu Huntang high, threw her towards the breadmen, and left without looking back. The breadmen were scattered around comfortably. As long as the third lady did not seek death, Mr. Lu would be absolutely safe. But can the third lady not commit suicide? The bakers were professionals after all. They quickly moved closer and grabbed Zhu Huntang's shoulders and legs, placing her safely on the ground. Huh, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. From the strength feedback from Zhu Huntang, we could tell that Mr. Lu didn't really want to do anything to her, otherwise everyone might not be able to catch her and would press her to the ground. After Zhu Huntang landed on the ground, he jumped a few times angrily. The old man had no mercy at all, and Zhu Huntang was so frightened that he almost turned into a sheep in mid-air. She waved, and a bread man immediately took the balance car from the nanny's car and placed it in front of Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang stepped on the balance car, hesitated for a moment, and decided to follow Lu Chang'an. He had just been investigated by the police and might be going to do something to kill people and silence them. Zhu Huntang had to get involved. Tong 11 and Yan Qingchen watched the scene from a distance. Lu Chang'an is a strong man, right? Zhu Huntang weighs more than 100 kilograms, and he actually lifted it and threw it out. This is incredible, Tong 11 said in disbelief. Lu Chang'an must have the kind of body that looks thin when dressed, but has a fleshy body when undressed, but I don't know what the difference is between the muscles of a man like him and the soft feeling of Qin's Haiqiang. It's not that Tong 11 has any thoughts about Lu Chang'an, but that girls think about men's muscles just like men think about a semicircle with small dots. No, Zhu Huntang is 98 pounds. Yan Qingcheng shook her head. Bai Hui is the one who weighs more than 100 pounds. She is as tall as Zhu Huntang, but has more fat on her body. Zhu Huntang will not allow her weight to reach 3 number of digits. Is this the point? Lu Chang'an just threw Zhu Huntang out. Tong 11 shook her head and asked tentatively. Zhu Huntang actually followed him again. I wonder what they are going to do. Aren't you going with them? Yan Qingcheng turned to look at Tong 11, and said slightly strangely, you didn't call me, why should I go together? I usually just give Zhu Huntang a lot of tutoring, and we don't play together often in private. Oh, that's right, I'm leaving now. I'll go back to the dormitory later today. Please hold the door open for me. Tong 11 took out her cell phone, dialed a number, and walked away. Yan Qingcheng took advantage of her height and glanced sideways at Tong 11. As expected, the message on the phone screen was dialing for Bai Hui. She sighed and shook her head slowly. If she had known that Tong 11 had announced her successful application to Bai Hui's studio in her dormitory, she would have been in a situation like this today. Yan Qingcheng doesn't blame Tong 11 either. She works for someone else and gets paid by the boss, but you still refuse to do it when you keep an eye on her? This Bai Hui is really free, why do you want her, Yan Qingcheng? If you have the ability to target an Nuan, this little hoe is digging in the wrong place. Lu Chang'an went to find Qin Yinan. Instead of walking slowly up the mountain, he went to take the cable car. He bought a ticket, and Zhu Huntang also came to buy a ticket. To buy a ticket, you need an ID. Zhu Huntang has never been one to carry ID, so she stood at the ticket window and chatted with the conductor for a few irrelevant words, then snapped her fingers and followed Lu Chang'an. A man in black ran over and took Zhu Huntang's mainland pass to buy a ticket. When he saw the real owner leaving and the person who bought the ticket with the certificate was not him, the ticket sales lady hesitated for a moment, then printed the ticket and handed it to the man in black. There was a distance between the cable car riding area and the ticket purchase point. Lu Chang'an walked over and entered the queuing area. Zhu Huntang quickly followed. She took a stack of RMB and started to hand them out from the back of the queue. What? Give me money. Internet celebrities make jokes. Live streaming. Everyone yelled, but when such a beautiful and lovely lady handed out money, even if they didn't know what she wanted to do, they all accepted it with a smile. Zhu Huntang handed out the money until it was in front of Lu Chang'an, and then stopped giving it out and jumped in line to stand in front of Lu Chang'an. Ah! Pay to jump in line. This is money and willfulness. Everyone in the queue understood the purpose of Zhu Huntang's payment, and couldn't help but talk about it. However, although the other party jumped in the queue, everyone got a few hundred to 1,000 yuan, which was not unacceptable. So everyone accepted the money with a smile, and some even wanted to insult me even though it was only a few $100s, and she was allowed to succeed. It was really irritating. Zhu Huntang inserted himself in front of Lu Chang'an and leaned back against Lu Chang'an, as if she had not noticed the scene when Lu Chang'an threw her. She grabbed one of Lu Chang'an's hands and held it in front of her. Lu Chang'an ignored her. As the team slowly moved forward, he found that Qin Minglin, whom he and Li Hongfang met the day before yesterday when they went to find Yan Hui, was in front. What he noticed was a drawing in Qin Minglin's hand. On it there was a device similar to the life-saving capsule of ancient civilization, that is, Shangguan Dandan's little coffin. It was installed like an elevator on a skyscraper. The top floor. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 971. When visiting Linan last year, Lu Chang'an was turned upside down, and Hans Hizi interfered with his plan to die Yizhume. When An Nuan arrived in Linan, she felt that it was not far from Zonghai, so she called Hans Hizi. Little did she know that Lu Chang'an had only booked a double bedroom, and he made no secret of his intention to pick flowers. While visiting the West Lake that day, they passed by a hotel renovated from an ancient village. Lu Chang'an wanted to book a room for Hans Hizzi in that hotel, but Hans Hizzi refused again. At that time, Lu Chang'an told them a story. An old man named Wang An often had a private room in a hotel called Fayun Aman, and he always brought a little girl with him who he doted on. Wang An seemed to dote on the little girl as a sister, but the ending was that when the little girl was 16, she became pregnant with the old man's child and married him. This old man later committed suicide. Calculating the time, it is not much different from the time when Professor Lu Jianxi disappeared. Lu Chang'an knew this old man. Everyone had an in their name. He also knew that the skyscraper on the drawing in Qin Minglan's hand once belonged to this old man. I just don't know whether the elevator-like equipment in the skyscraper in the drawing is really the life-saving capsule left by Tesla's ancient civilization. What are you looking at? Zhu Huntang was touching and squeezing Lu Chang'an's fingers. She felt that this should be the second most vulnerable joint on Lu Chang'an's body, so she tried repeatedly to bend one of Lu Chang'an's fingers back, but it never worked. Succeeded. She raised her head, followed Lu Chang'an's gaze, and looked at the woman in front of her suspiciously. This woman is probably about the same age as Professor Lu, maybe a little younger, but in terms of figure, appearance, or temperament, she can't even compare to the alcoholic Professor Lu, let alone the usual moonlit evenings under the willow tree. As elegant as Professor Lu in the silent night. But the way men look at women is different from women's standards of beauty. Zhu Huntang thinks this woman is useless, but maybe Lu Chang'an thinks she is coquettish enough and wants to play with her casually. Zhu Huntang still knows Lu Chang'an very well. Even though Lu Chang'an always looks very particular and an elegant person who knows how to live, in fact, apart from being picky about Zhu Huntang, he is really not picky in other aspects. He is willing to eat the exquisite meal prepared by Zhu Huntang's chef, but he is also happy eating the barbecue at the roadside stall filled with dust. He also eats the spicy stewed vegetables that have been stewed in pots of water for who knows how many years. Eating and sex are actually one. A man who eats everything will basically have sex with any woman. This is a truth that Zhu Huntang discovered without much observation and purely relying on his own wit. I didn't see anything Lu Chang'an didn't want to alert the enemy. This woman seemed to have come to Junxia because of Zhang's Hongai. Zhang's Hongai was rubbed into a jar by Lu Chang'an and became a nutrient supplier for a small biological community. Qin Minglan naturally couldn't find anyone. It is not yet known whether she found someone in Junxia to get the blueprint in her hand, or whether she brought Zonghai's matter to Junxia to handle it. This woman smells very bad, the smell of rotten fish and shrimp. Zhu Huntang is more sensitive to smells. After frowning, he felt that Lu Chang'an would not be interested in such a woman. Although he is delicious and will eat everything, Zhu Huntang does not believe that he will eat garbage. Under Lu Chang'an's education, Zhu Huntang has learned not to speak too loudly during class, but she has no worries about speaking at other times. Her voice is not quiet enough for people in front to hear. Women are always more sensitive to other women's evaluation of themselves. When Qin Minglan heard this, she felt that she could not be talking about herself, so she just glanced back subconsciously. Zhu Huntang, Qin Minglan couldn't help blurting out. You know me. Zhu Huntang was also surprised. He didn't expect that Miss Zhu San was at such a low level that even he could call her by name. Only then did Qin Minglan realize that the vicious comment she just heard was actually directed at herself. Why are you talking? Qin Minglan's face was ashen. Women of her age tend to have stronger desires, lead a more casual and indulgent life, and eat and drink with heavier tastes. Even if they maintain a bright and beautiful appearance and passable skin, it is often difficult to avoid the problem of not having fresh breath. Body odor is too strong and needs perfume to cover it up, private parts smell bad, etc. Of course she knows these problems herself. If she can't solve them, she will be very concerned about other people's judgment. Just like when Lu Chang'an said that Bai Hui's saliva was sprayed on his face, Bai Hui misunderstood that he meant that her saliva had a smell, so she would hurriedly blow on him to prove that she had no breath. I speak Mandarin, is my Mandarin BIA accurate? Zhu Huntang said. Lu Chang'an hit her, and Zhu Huntang learned all kinds of weird accents when she had nothing to do. Because of this, she fell in love with imitating sheep calls, and finally mastered the ability to transform into sheep. The source may be that she likes to learn all kinds of pronunciations. Talk nonsense with the screams. Qin Minglin couldn't help but glance at Lu Chang'an, and then she realized that Zhu Huntang was holding one of the young man's arms on his chest. His posture was extremely intimate, but the young man treated Zhu Huntang casually and contemptuously, and didn't treat Zhu Huntang very much. Taking her status as the third young lady of the Zhu family seriously, she actually raised her hand to hit someone. It's not the flirting kind of bumping between young lovers, but the hitting with the meaning of reprimand and discipline. Who is this person? There is still such a king in southern Hunan who can suppress Zhu Huntang, so he would attack Zhu Huntang like this? Qin Minglin only knew that Qin Yan'an could treat Zhu Huntang with this kind of attitude, but that was Zhu Huntang's best friend. Qin Yan'an was older than Zhu Huntang, so it was normal for Qin Yan'an to discipline her like a sister. Hit me on the head again. Zhu Huntang ignored Qin Minglin, grabbed Lu Chang'an's finger and bit it hard. She turned into a sheep. She had a second superpower, maybe she could break Lu Chang'an's finger. Defense. After taking several bites, there was no result. Not even a tooth mark was left. Zhu Huntang threw away Lu Chang'an's fingers and wiped the saliva left by her with his clothes. He suddenly felt that he had spat on him and even rubbed it. There was nothing he could do to her on his clothes. Miss Zuzan is a bit awesome. After Zhu Huntang saw the problem from this perspective, he became proud and didn't bother to argue with him. He leaned in his arms and closed his eyes while waiting for the cable car. Qin Minglin was originally angry when Zhu Huntang first scolded and then acted arrogantly, but now her attention was completely attracted by Lu Chang'an. She had to be curious about this young man, who could make Zhu Huntang like a obsessed girl in love. Man, what is his identity? Don't look at me, your male partner is going to be jealous. Lu Chang'an was not as arrogant as Zhu Huntang, so he said with a smile. You can't discriminate against someone just because they stink. Can everyone smell as sweet as a beautiful girl? What's more, some things still smell bad but taste good. To be honest, Lu Chang'an doesn't want to eat Qin Minglin, let alone thinks Qin Minglin tastes good. Qin Minglin turned her head slightly warmly and touched her cheek. The eyes and tone of this young man actually had a gentleness that made people suddenly feel like a girl. Qin Minglin was a little strange. She probably guessed it. Because of this man's prominent status, this kind of man is the kind of spring breeze that can make women like her ripple. She didn't look at Huang Shuwen's expression next to her to see if he was jealous. He even ate the fishy seafood juice, so what's the point of being jealous? I recommend a novel called The Reborn Young Master, which is the story of the old man Wang An at the beginning of this chapter. It is a classic and Xiahua has read it several times. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 972. Jin Ho once told Lu Chang'an the story of Huang Shuwen. Huang Shuwen himself was a civil servant, and his wife worked in the secretary's office of an investment company. Later, his wife cheated on the boss. The fact that Jin Haohui told Lu Chang'an about Huang Shuwen's disgraceful privacy so casually showed that Huang Shuwen had little status in Qin Minglin's social circle. Who would look down on a man who eats soft food with his female boss? Jin Ho can be regarded as the second generation of scholars. He may not be as famous as the other second generations, but he still has his style. The poetry and calligraphy family is still very popular and well received. After all, if you offend the emperor, the 9 tribes within 3 generations will be punished at most. If you offend the literati, you will be crushed and ashes scolded for thousands of years, which cannot be washed away. Jinho didn't take Huang Shuwen seriously, but Huang Shuwen didn't care much. After so many years of following Qin Minglin, the benefits that fell into his pocket were the most real. He even wanted to work hard to become a regular employee. Because of his sister's kindness, he slept with Qin Minglin. Only then will you know. Huang Shuwen already knew Qin Minglin's behavior and temperament relatively well. He would scold Qin Minglin in person and make her decide to swallow her anger. There are also people in Zonghai, but where is that place? The most prosperous city in the country, where the richest people are concentrated. In comparison, Juncha looks like a countryside. If you meet a man or a woman in this countryside, can you suppress Qin Minglin? This was something Huang Shuwen had never thought of. For a moment, he thought he had arrived at the most prosperous lychee garden in Zonghai. Feeling that the young man's eyes seemed to have glanced at him, Huang Shuwen couldn't help but straighten his body, smoothed his sleeves, and looked at his watch, a Vacheron Constantine worth millions, which was much better than what his wife had given him as a gift from his boss back then. And said that the gifts bought for him with salary were much more expensive. What a good watch. Lu Chang'an smiled and looked at his wrist. Zhou Dongdong often drew watches for him. The queue was very fast. Qin Minglin and Huang Shuwen got on the cable car first, and Lu Chang'an pushed Zhu Huntang into the next one. This cable car is too simple, just a few steel pipes and ropes. Zhu Huntang resisted slightly, but he didn't want to be left here by Lu Chang'an, so he reluctantly got on it. The simpler, the more reliable it is. Its structure is stable and practical, and it is sufficient to realize its design function. On the contrary, like your brain, there are tens of billions of neurons in the cerebral cortex, so what's the use? You are not living with like single-celled animals, Lu Chang'an said angrily. Zhu Huntang frowned. What Lu Chang'an said seemed to make sense, and he asked again, what are single-celled animals like? Paramecium. What is a paramecium? You are actually from the Department of Biology. Why did you come to study in the Department of Biology? Being in the same department as you makes me feel that my major is insulted. What are single-celled animals like? Zhu Huntang said with great interest, turning a deaf ear to Lu Chang'an's sarcastic remarks. The bad thing about the old man is that he is very handsome. The bad thing is that he has a mouth. Just get used to it. There is no nervous system, no reflexes, only stress. Protozoa composed of single cells have a very simple structure. The representative of them is paramecium, which is the most typical single-cell animal. Lu Chang'an still remembers some noble status, temperament. An arrogant girl calls the boy she likes paramecium. Then can it turn into a sheep? Zhu Huntang said proudly, I can turn into a sheep. What is there to be proud of? Not only can I turn into a sheep, I can also turn into any kind of animal or plant. I can change into any kind of animal or plant that has ever appeared on the earth. I can also turn into a mythical creature. You can also go to other planets and come back as aliens. Lu Chang'an was offended by her proud tone. Zhu Huntang looked at Lu Chang'an suspiciously, his big eyes full of confusion, and his black pupils rolling. He raised one leg to press Lu Chang'an, clasped his hands on his chest, and his eyes gradually became more scrutinizing. Lu Chang'an turned his head, not wanting to look at her or see her. Normally speaking, as a human, I have learned to transform. Even if I just transform into a sheep, that is a superpower and it is very amazing, Zhu Huntang analyzed calmly. Lu Chang'an felt a little emotional, and she started to analyze again. At this time, he would think about how great it would be if she applied her keen information analysis ability to her studies. You said you can change into so many types, which seems very impressive, but it's like Zhou Dongdong said to the teacher, I can do this question, but the teacher told her that I will do more questions. Is this normal? Not normal. Unless the teacher feels that Zhou Dongdong should reach a higher level, or not reach the teacher's level, but at least it should be very close, or show her potential to reach the teacher's level. Zhu Huntang felt around on his body and looked at Lu Chang'an. Why do you have this attitude? Why do you think I should perform better? Why do you feel that I have not shown a performance close to your powerful ability, disappointed or even angry? What kind of expectations do you have for me, and why do you have such expectations? You know, you have no hope that Zhou Dongdong can be admitted to Hunan University normally. Lu Chang'an didn't speak, not because Zhu Huntang said he was speechless, but because he didn't want to fool her or answer her questions. This guy had already made Lu Chang'an lose his temper. He was only ambitious during the Chinese New Year and thought he was tame. Sheep are a simple thing. Zhu Huntang had many questions, but Lu Chang'an didn't answer any of them. Zhu Huntang's brain was running at high speed, and countless sheep were running in circles on the cerebral cortex. They were shouting, arguing, debating, and thinking, and finally came to a conclusion, and a unified consensus was conveyed. Gave Zhu Huntang an answer. Actually, I was born a fairy. It's not my imagination, it's an ironclad fact. Zhu Huntang became arrogant. Lu Chang'an just wanted to throw her off the cable car. Every few years, a unique fairy is born in human beings. The fairy of this generation is me. Fairies must have powerful guardians. You are the guardian of the light system, and my mother is the guardian of the dark system. My responsibility is to protect my growth. When I grow up one day and rule the entire universe, changing into a sheep is just my first ability. I will become stronger next. Yeah, Lu Chang'an nodded and didn't want to say anything else. No wonder he liked playing with Zhou Dongdong so much. Just kidding. Zhu Huntang looked at Lu Chang'an with wise eyes. The truth should be that my birth is probably related to you. My mother was pregnant with six children at the time, but she still couldn't help but fall in love with you. You had sex with her during her pregnancy, and I got nourishment from it. You think that by absorbing those things from you, I should be regarded as being transformed, and my ability is not limited to turning into a sheep. Zhu Huntang thought as he spoke, feeling more and more that he was getting closer to the truth. No wonder Qin Yinan, as a pregnant woman, repeatedly tried to show off her charm and seduce Lu Chang'an to stay overnight. In fact, it was not because she was a traveler trapped in the desert, but because she wanted Lu Chang'an. Of those things. Just like when her mother used it to nourish Zhu Huntang, Qin Yinan also wanted to use it to nourish Lu Qianqian. Only Lu Qianqian, who was born in this way, would be able to compete with Zhu Huntang for the heir to the Kyushu Fenglai sword sect in the future. If Lu Chang'an wants to stay at Qin Yinan's place tonight, he must do something sabotage, lest Qin Yinan, a veteran dragon spirit pot rogue, simply transform into 3 characters in order to obtain more resources. But it's long-lasting. Please give me monthly tickets and all kinds of things. I woke up in the middle of the night and found that the upload had not been published. I didn't stop updating it. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 973. He was wary, but Zhu Huntang has now analyzed more information. The relationship between him and Lu Chang'an definitely did not start when he accidentally saw him jumping off a building last year. Zhu Huntang also worked hard to actively improve the intimacy between himself and Lu Chang'an, but there was really no other way. Lu Chang'an was not happy because his mother was too cruel, so she left the mess for Zhu Huntang to clean up, and let the young Mimea carry it on her immature shoulders. A burden that this age should not bear. Maybe this is the fate and suffering of an heir. Sometimes Zhu Huntang really just wants to be an ordinary girl. The ability is more than just changing into a sheep, but you just learned how to change into a sheep. Lu Chang'an did not deny what Zhu Huntang said. She always uses the correct derivation process to come to the wrong conclusion, or uses the wrong derivation to come to the correct conclusion, which often surprises Lu Chang'an. Isn't it all because of you? Zhu Huntang became angry when he mentioned that he could only change into a sheep. What does it have to do with me? Isn't it because you like to bleat that you can only transform into a sheep? Think again. Think again. If it hadn't been for that night, you jumped into the sky, sat on my waist, and sandwiched me between your legs. I looked like a toad carrying a person. After a few jumps, you forced me to admit that I was a horse, saying that I was not a fairy, but at most a fairy sheep, which left a psychological shadow on me. How can I be where I am today? Lu Chang'an remained silent. He couldn't bear to look back on the past. He really shouldn't have been like this at the beginning, which he was not embarrassed to admit. Of course, it won't work to admit your mistake to Zhu Huntang. It's not that the elder refuses to bow his head, but once he admits his mistake to her, her next step will be to ride on his neck, ask him to abdicate, and let her become Kyushu Fenglai, the master of the sword sect, and so on. What does a few jumps mean? Lu Chang'an had never heard of this word, and she didn't know where she learned the local language. Gee, the shape of this character is the shape of our jumping path. Lu Chang'an nodded. It turns out that this means a few jumps, a few jumps. Zhu Huntang can also invent new words. Think about it now, do you feel ashamed? You are riding your old lover's daughter flying in the sky, holding her as a mount and jumping around. Do you think what you are doing is a human thing? Zhu Huntang felt that he taking control of the situation, he arrogantly scolded Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an's face felt slightly hot, and he quickly accelerated the flow of blood in the capillaries under his face to take away the heat and cool down. Let's do this. Zhu Huntang's tone softened. No need to talk. Lu Chang'an waved his hand and slapped Zhu Huntang on the mouth to stop her from saying things like, well, since you know you are wrong, give me the position of the leader of the 9 provinces Fenglai sword section. Zhu Huntang wanted to punch and kick Lu Chang'an again, but she was restrained by the seat belt on the cable car, which affected her ability to display her martial arts skills, so she had to bite the back of Lu Chang'an's hand. It was just that the skin on the back of his hand was so tight that she couldn't bite it with her sharp teeth. Instead, she stuck out her tongue and accidentally licked the back of his hand, which made Zhu Huntang have to stop the attack and spit "bot, bot," repeatedly. The cable car quickly reached the top of the mountain. Zhu Huntang followed Lu Chang'an like a little girl, and felt that she was more innocent and cute than usual when she was around Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an had his hands behind his back, and Zhu Huntang was beside him. He always made his posture more serious and upright, intentionally or unintentionally. They went to find Qin Yan'an and found that Qin Minglan and Huang Shuwen were heading to the same place. Qin Minglan and Huang Shuwen arrived first. While waiting for the owner to open the elevator, Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang walked over. After the face recognition system scanned the elevator opened automatically. I didn't expect that they all came to visit Miss Qin. Qin Minglan pulled Huang Shuwen in and said hello with a smile. Qin Minglan walked into the elevator, and Zhu Huntang pressed against the elevator as if pushed by an invisible piston. He buried his face in Lu Chang'an's arm to avoid smelling the smell of rotten fish and shrimp, and thought about how Qin Minglan had polluted the air. It might affect the baby in Qin Yan'an's belly. Do you want to suggest Qin Yan'an change the elevator? After all, Qin Yan'an had to wear radiation protection clothing when she saw Zhu Huntang. Could it be that Qin Minglan was not as capable of polluting others as Zhu Huntang? Zhu Huntang also disagrees with Qin Minglan's use of the word visit. Who would use the word visit when going to his best friend's home? It is really uneducated. After all, Zhu Huntang is someone who can exchange literature with Professor Lu, so he is naturally very particular about the wording of his conversations. Do you have anything to do with her? Lu Chang'an asked casually. Qin Minglin is actually not as unbearable as Zhu Huntang said. Her figure is similar to Professor Ling, her skin is a bit worse, her appearance is stronger, but her temperament is not as good. Professor Ling actually lets her dress up a bit. She is the kind of mature woman who makes men feel very desirable. She also has superior living conditions and is not that rich, but she is indeed a higher quality sister or aunt. The smell of Qin Minglin's body is not that stinky fish and rotten shrimps as Zhu Huntang said. It is not that disgusting. Some friends who like to browse certain literary websites may find a more suitable word, star odor. The matter between the Jinling Qin family and the Zonghai Qin family. The two families have the same clan and ancestors. The elders hope that the younger generations will contact each other more. I will be the intermediary to contact you. Qin Minglin did not mind speaking out her purpose directly. This young man being able to directly enter and exit Qin Yinan's residence obviously has a close relationship with Qin Yinan. Looking at Zhu Huntang who was hiding behind him, the young and powerful young man from this aristocratic family was indeed in the same circle. Lu Chang'an nodded and said nothing. The Qin family of Zonghai is famous for its lychee garden, which is the largest private estate in the world, and it is located just outside Zonghai. The Qin family of Zonghai also has Zotyi group, which wears the same pants as it. Even the apparent wealth of the Zhu family, it cannot be said that the voltage is stable at one end. Of course, if the Zhu family includes the underground forces and black technology controlled by Sumei, then it is not something that ordinary private groups can achieve. The Jinling Qin family and the Zonghai Qin family actually have little friendship. The Zonghai Qin family separated a few years ago, and Qin Peng even had Qin Peng's intention in it. Are you the middle contact? Who are you from the lychee garden? Zhu Huntang didn't believe it at all. Just as Qin Minglin thought, young people from powerful families were all in the same circle. If Qin Minglin was an important figure in the lychee garden, Zhu Huntang would there will be some impression. Qin Minglin's face changed slightly, and it was difficult to answer Zhu Huntang's question, so she had to pretend that she still cared about Zhu Huntang calling her stinky fish and rotten shrimp, so she didn't want to talk to Zhu Huntang. The elevator door opened, and Qin Yinan, who was playing with the flowers outside the window from a distance in the living room, turned his head casually. She originally wanted to pretend that her brother's arrival was normal, but the first thing she saw was Zhu Huntang, who was dancing and running over happily. She quickly went to put on the radiation protection clothes. After all, there was a training for pregnant women in the last section. In class, the teacher emphasized that radiation-proof clothing provides a very powerful protective effect for pregnant women and babies during pregnancy. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 974. Seeing that Qin Yinan didn't even greet the guests, but first put on the radiation-proof clothes, Zhu Huntang was furious. Even if he couldn't turn into a sheep now, he still wanted to use sheep-goat collision on Qin Yinan. His waving hands stopped and he headed directly towards Qin Yinan was about to pounce on him. Lu Chang'an stretched out his hand and grabbed the back of Zhu Huntang's neck. He didn't care about the occasion. She and Qin Yinan were both wearing skirts. Forget about Zhu Huntang, she always wears a pair of pumpkin pants under her fluffy and high-rising fairy skirt. She is also too lively and always likes to punch and kick Lu Chang'an, which is why she has to dress like this. After all, if Zhu Huntang was using the unique skill of Zhu Fenglai sword sect and beat Lu Chang'an to a bloody head, he would hit the wall and the ceiling like a kite with its string cut off. As a result, he was about to use his unique skills. Kill, the little girl is exposed, how embarrassing it is, it will inevitably affect Zhu Huntang's unique skills. So Zhu Huntang was used to wearing safety pants so that he could beat Lu Chang'an at any time. But a normal woman like Qin Yinan will wear safety pants when her skirt is too short. She usually doesn't go out at home, so the skirt may be full of sexy elements and narrow and difficult to block. Once Qin Yinan was knocked down by Zhu Huntang, it would be whose family can't be shut up by the full moon, and the moonlight shines on others. Damn old man. Let me go and let me fight her. Zhu Huntang wanted to grab Lu Chang'an's arm with his backhand and throw him over his head. It's a pity that Yang Li is sometimes poor, and maybe only Dan Dan can do this kind of thing, so when Shangguan Dan Dan is backing him, Zhu Huntang is particularly bossy and arrogant. Now that Dan Dan is not around, Lu Chang'an and Qin Yan'an are like two waves meeting each other. Each wave is higher than the other, and they will beat Zhu Huntang one after another. Zhu Huntang has to temporarily imitate that fan, giving his wife to Yu Wanggujian and swallowing his anger. Bar. How can you fight for your life and my life? Qin Yan'an was proud to see his brother favoring her, but when he saw the two people behind the elevator, he stopped playing around and smiled in surprise. This is really Boss Qin. I received a message from Secretary Long 2 days ago, saying that you came to see me if you have something to do. I just met these two downstairs, so I followed them up. Don't bother me, right? Qin Minglan said with a smile, and also glanced at Huang Shuwen. As expected, Huang Shuwen looked a little strange. Even though there was no color or soul inspiration, it was almost the same. His body was a little stiff and he forgot to move forward. His reaction was completely expected by Qin Minglan. When she looked at him, she was not warning or jealous, but wanted to remind Huang Shuwen that it was not that she, Qin Minglan, was shameless, but that Zhu Huntang was too arrogant and shameless. Li Qin Yan'an remembers her Qin Minglan, which is enough to prove that she Qin Minglan is not an insignificant stinky fish and rotten shrimp. Don't disturb, please sit down. In fact, it is a bit disturbing, but Qin Yan'an and Zhu Huntang are different after all, especially when facing outsiders. Qin Yan'an not only represents herself. When it comes to people and things within the system, there will always be people who like multiple interpretations. With someone like Qin Yan'an, it would be easiest to stay in school. If she were also in the system, every look, every movement, and the tone of her voice when greeting her would all be revealed, being used as a barometer. This is why Qin Yan'an likes to live at Lushan Mountain and work at Hunan University. In both places, she will not be secretly observed and monitored by so many people, and no political signals can be read from her. The visit of someone like Qin Minglan is when Qin Yan'an needs to put on a mask for herself. Qin Minglan owns a very popular club in Zhonghai, where powerful people come and go, and the club's catering is also very famous. Qin Yan'an and Zhu Huntang ate there together, and then Qin Minglan came over to say hello. Based on Qin Yan'an's understanding of Zhu Huntang probably doesn't remember Qin Minglan. In Zhu Huntang's words, if I have to remember everyone who has greeted me, then I am probably the one who needs her. Someone who goes around and greets people. This is my assistant. He is now in charge of the restaurant you went to with Miss Susan. Qin Minglan didn't mind Huang Shuwen's somewhat rude performance. It's normal to see Qin Yan'an lose his temper. Can a man who loses his temper in front of Qin Yan'an win Qin Yan'an's favor? Even if Huang Shuwen saved the earth in his previous life and could catch Qin Yan'an's eyes, it would not do any harm to Qin Minglan. Because even if a man has a beauty like Qin Yan'an, he will still feel bored after 10 days, and will still come to Qin Minglan to cheat. Qin Minglan still understands men very well. She can still control Qin Yan'an through Huang Shuwen. Isn't this a win-win situation? It's a pity that this is just a thought. Huang Shuwen is a fun phoenix man to Qin Minglan. How could Qin Yan'an like him? But the man holding the back of Zhu Huntang's neck is really extraordinary. When Qin Yan'an saw this man, the subtle changes in her eyes and expressions were enough to show that she had a deep love for him and was satisfied just by seeing him. Joy and happiness cannot be faked. Hello. Qin Yan'an smiled slightly and greeted Huang Shuwen. Hello. Huang Shuwen woke up and sat down next to Qin Minglan a little awkwardly. Lu Chang'an naturally didn't need Qin Yan'an to greet her. Seeing that Qin Minglan seemed to have something serious to talk to Qin Yan'an, He still grabbed Zhu Huntang by the back of her neck and took her to the kitchen. "Are you going to kill me in the kitchen? Make me a roasted whole lamb." Zhu Huntang clasped his hands on his chest, not very afraid. After looking at the kitchen, he said, "You just cooked me at noon, and now you want to roast me? You also gave me a set meal of water and fire. Sooner or later, I will advise your mother to change the grounding to a ban." Lu Chang'an felt that Zhu Huntang was born to be irritating. Some of her abilities were inherited from Lu Chang'an. It was Su Mei's fault that she was not educated well, but her bad mouth and her tendency to talk nonsense were definitely innate to her. Even if Su Mei wanted to teach her, she couldn't. What a sheep that can beat blindly. Zhu Huntang was silent for a minute with some fear, carefully observing whether Lu Chang'an was serious. Being banned is much scarier than being banned. The ban that ordinary people can understand is not scary. What is scary is that the old man and his mother come up with some drugs or biological agents to temporarily deprive Zhu Huntang of his language function. That is really scary. Judging from the ruthless past of the two of them uniting to destroy Mai, it is definitely possible. Fortunately, Lu Chang'an ignored her after saying that. Instead, he sent a message to Yan Hui and asked her to bring Yan Qingcheng to Lushan Mountain for dinner. Professor Lu Jianxi was going to cook in person to practice for Yan Hui and talk about public welfare education. Foundation matters. Grandpa, Zhu Huntang couldn't be sure how serious Lu Chang'an's words were, so he decided to keep a low profile for the time being. "Are you going to cook? I'll help you." Even Lu Chang'an found it strange that she knew the word to strike. He thought for a while, but did not dissipate Zhu Huntang's enthusiasm. He pressed the control panel on the kitchen table. The spice table protruded from the wall. "Tell me these two kinds of white fine particles, which one is salt and which one is salt." "It's sugar." "Are you mentally retarded watching TV series? It doesn't matter." Zhu Huntang felt that he was being underestimated and coughed lightly. "The finest ones are salt, the thicker ones are sugar, and the cubes and glass shards are all sugar. The gem-like one next to it is the kind of salt usually used for eating steaks. I don't know what it is called, but it must be salt. And, well, this colorful one is also salt, and this gray-like one is also salt, like a needle. It's the same thing with salt." Lu Chang'an nodded. It seemed that he couldn't tell the difference between salt and sugar. He was definitely mentally retarded rather than being pampered and keeping his hands clean. How could he be pampered enough to surpass Zhu Huntang? "You've never cooked before, how do you know the difference?" Lu Chang'an asked. Not only could she distinguish between sugar and salt, but she could also recognize many kinds of salt, which was a bit surprising. "I just cooked a whole table of BAA dishes for you at Nanshan Ranch yesterday morning." Zhu Huntang was so angry that he couldn't hold back anymore. He stretched out his hand to pinch Lu Chang'an's neck. "Take my BAA, spit out all the food. It's all digested." Lu Chang'an really forgot. The most important thing is, who of her can be called the cook? Most called playing in the kitchen. "Go away, I will be the chef again tonight." Zhu Huntang pushed the unsuspecting Lu Chang'an aside with a small push. Zhu Huntang and Lu Chang'an were both stunned, and they looked at each other. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 975. Zhu Huntang often held Lu Chang'an down and beat him, but he didn't resist at all. That's because he couldn't break the defense and cause no harm. He was like a mosquito that couldn't break through the skin. He kept poking and poking at him, unaware that he might be swatted to death at any time. Of course Lu Chang'an would not shoot Zhu Huntang to death, so Zhu Huntang was not afraid of him and would just poke him when he had the chance, just for fun. If Zhu Huntang is a strong person who can hurt Lu Chang'an and beat him to death, and she beats Lu Chang'an every day, Can Lu Chang'an not resist? Zhu Huntang looked at his little hands. He seemed to have burst out with a very powerful force and pushed Lu Chang'an aside. This is a very incredible phenomenon. You must know that no matter how Zhu Huntang pulls Lu Chang'an, he will never move an inch. Except for that time at Nanshan Ranch, when she saw his high-spirited and yang, so she performed sheep clash and knocked him to the ground. Zhu Huntang had never shaken Lu Chang'an's calm figure. For example, at noon today, when Zhu Huntang took advantage of him to peek at Professor Lu and Professor Ling's naked bodies, he attacked him from behind and did not bump him into the middle of the two professors so that they could play together. "Hey," Zhu Huntang shouted. "What's your name?" Lu Chang'an came to his senses. "Try pushing me again. Just give it a try." Zhu Huntang was very excited. The image of Lu Chang'an being pushed to the ground and then riding on him arrogantly appeared in his mind, as if he was driving the god Baa to rule the world. He put out both palms and pushed towards Lu Chang'an with all his strength. Not moving at all. "Don't resist me," Zhu Huntang tried again. Still not moving. "What's going on?" Zhu Huntang looked at his palms. Have his white and tender little hands lost their power? Zhu Huntang knew very well that even if Lu Chang'an did not deliberately take precautions, when faced with the push from outside forces, he would act like roots taking root under his feet. His seemingly random push just now was actually a powerful force equivalent to Shang Guan Dandan's level. You just burst out with relatively powerful power, but it was obviously just accidental. As for whether you can use this power again in the future, it still needs to be observed, Lu Chang'an said calmly. Finally a little progress. Just a little bit, nothing to be happy about. That means I can't go up to heaven or earth, and am omnipotent. Zhu Huntang was disappointed and depressed. So you also know that you can't go up to the sky or the earth, and you are omnipotent? Lu Chang'an asked curiously. I always thought that you felt that you were invincible and that no one could control you. Zhu Huntang walked away from the kitchen counter, no longer in the mood to cook. Cooking depends on your mood. Only when you are in a good mood can you make delicious meals. A bad mood will affect Zhu Huntang's level and make diners misjudge Zhu Huntang's cooking skills. She pushed Lu Chang'an a few more times, but the feeling of shaking the mountain inadvertently could never be regained. From now on, if you are fine, just push me like this and find the feeling. You must practice diligently and persevere in everything, and only then can you achieve something and make progress in the end, Lu Chang'an said. So Zhu Huntang pushed left and right next to Lu Chang'an, practiced 10 times, and then said, I'm tired, let's rest first. Lu Chang'an wanted to roast her. Are you tired now? Don't you usually torture me for a whole class? That was for fun. Now you let me push. You are practicing, and practicing is learning. When I study, I feel exhausted and lose interest, Zhu Huntang explained matter-of-factly. You have to know that every push carries the hope of success. Practicing 10 times in a row means failing 10 times in a row. Even if you are persistent, won't you be hit hard if you fail 10 times in a row, Mr. Zhu Tang explained again. Lu Chang'an nodded. It turns out that Zhu Huntang is not interested in anything more than 10 attempts, but why is she so interested in competing for the position of the leader of the 9 provinces Fenglai sword sect? Otherwise, give her the dice, maybe she won't bother with this matter in the future, and will abdicate in 10 days. Most likely, the less she gets, the more she wants it, and once she gets it, she becomes uninterested. If this is a man, he is most likely a scumbag. Haven't you already started to get to know some scientific research laboratories? Take the underground base of Shonan University as an example. The virtual world game project you have been paying attention to recently, the development and debugging of many sub-projects, has failed 10 times. Hundreds, thousands times, thousands of failures are nothing, Lu Chang'an said patiently. After all, if she could calm down and practice hard, she wouldn't be Zhu Huntang at all. She has brought a little surprise to Lu Chang'an today and shown some progress. Lu Chang'an did not expect to reach the top in one step. She suddenly transformed and satisfied Lu Chang'an in every aspect. Educating children should always be done step by step, slowly, and there is no need to rush, as they have plenty of time. It makes sense. Just like my mother, you must have ignored her at the beginning. She was as cold as an ice cube at -300 degrees Celsius. It would not melt no matter how much you licked it. But she persisted, licking faster and faster, at high speed. It brought high heat and finally melted you. Zhu Huntang frowned and thought, she is staying in Antarctica now. She is probably missing your cold feeling back then. Lu Chang'an clenched the kitchen knife in his hand and had to remind him of the relationship between this thing and himself. Do you also know that high-speed exercise can generate more heat? This is basic knowledge in junior high schools, Lu Chang'an said coldly. Oh, Bai Hui and I were watching a movie one time. A woman in the movie said she was so hot. Bai Hui said she would be hotter later. I asked why and she said, "Shut up." Lu Chang'an didn't want to hear the large-scale conversation between the two girls in private. Zhu Huntang did not go on to say that teasing the old man with this kind of topic was something that only dirty big-name women like Qin Yan'an and Bai Hui would do. Pure Mai was just paraphrasing it. Fortunately, after Lu Chang'an's persuasion, Zhu Huntang finally started working hard and kept pushing Lu Chang'an in the kitchen. After all, this kind of exercise was more interesting than learning textbook knowledge. Zhu Huntang not only used palm skills, but also boxing and leg skills. Fought, even used the alpaca kung fu once, and then was beaten by Lu Chang'an. Soon Qin Yan'an came over and opened the kitchen door and saw Zhu Huntang patting Lu Chang'an on the back. Qin Yan'an turned a blind eye to the scene and just explained the reason for Qin Minglan's visit. She wanted Qin Peng to write an inscription for the preparatory committee of the World Qin Clan Ancestor Worship Conference as a sign of support for this event. Are you thinking too much? Lu Chang'an smiled and made no further comments. Qin Yan'an, I have just demonstrated a superpower. I had a fight with Lu Chang'an. We were 50-50, so it was barely a tie. Zhu Huntang stopped slapping Lu Chang'an on the back, and Yang Yang said proudly to Qin Yan'an. He was still wearing a radiation-proof suit, so he never thought that Mai would have grown into Lu Changchun's rival. It turns out that the person in this world who can be evenly matched with him is actually you. You have gained experience. Qin Yan'an nodded, not believing it at all. You don't believe it? Ask him. Zhu Huntang pointed at Lu Chang'an with astonishing momentum. She has shown some relatively strong abilities, anyway, don't fight with her recently. Her hands are neither light nor heavy, and her strength is beyond her control, Lu Chang'an reminded Qin Yan'an. After all, Qin Yan'an is one of Zhu Huntang's favorite rough-and-tumble targets. Unlike when she tormented Lu Chang'an, Zhu Huntang's most common actions against Qin Yan'an were arching and grabbing, which could easily harm Lu Changqian's food source in the future. Qin Yan'an looked at Zhu Huntang in slight surprise. Her gaze made Zhu Huntang enjoy it, so Zhu Huntang seemed to have gained motivation and continued to push and beat Lu Chang'an, becoming more determined to master the power. Qin Yan'an was a little worried. It seemed that during the years when Su Mei and her brother were together, she was like that so and so ji. She had obtained the most resources and created Zhu Huntang today. I still can't be fooled by Zhu Huntang's appearance as a harmless lamb. I have to work overtime to obtain more resources for Lu Qianqian. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 976. Zhu Huntang thought on the way up the mountain that he must be so perfect now and have super transformation ability because his mother worked day and night during her pregnancy and squeezed out more resources. At that time, she realized that Qin Yan'an would also use this method to nourish Lu Qianqian so that he could compete with Zhu Huntang for the heir position of Zhu Fenglai Jianmen in the future. She must sabotage it tonight to stop Qin Yan'an's plan. After Qin Yan'an saw that Zhu Huntang had developed more abilities, he became secretly vigilant and determined to obtain more resources for Lu Changchun. I have to say that best friends are best friends after all, and they always have such a tacit understanding. Lu Chang'an, who was cooking, didn't know that the two best friends were hiding their secrets, and showed off a little proudly. Actually, Zhu Huntang is not limited to this ability. I still remember that day I called her via video call to talk about the charity foundation. And it turned out that the person who connected to the video was a sheep. That was Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang didn't take the initiative to tell Qin Yinan, but he didn't mind if Qin Yinan knew. After all, Qin Yinan helped take care of Zhu Huntang's first period. No matter how much he despised Qin Yinan, he was Lu Chang'an's bitch. I trust him. There are still some. Zhu Huntang just heard the pride in Lu Chang'an's tone, and immediately became proud. It turned out that the bad old man continued to fight and scold, but in fact he still cared about Bimi. At that time, I thought it was the pet she kept at Nanshan Ranch. Qin Yinan was surprised. Zhu Huntang should not be underestimated. Qin Yinan has always been wary of Zhu Huntang's IQ contaminating Lu Changqian. It's not that she thinks Zhu Huntang's IQ is very low, but that Zhu Huntang's words and deeds have little impact on herself, but will pollute others. Her set of thoughts, logic, and self-contained knowledge reserves can only be applied to her, and other people's living environment, identity, and background cannot match it. Even if Lu Changqian is of course a very precious dragon son, the raising conditions and living and family environment of Qin Yinan and Lu Chang'an are completely different from Zhu Huntang. If Lu Qianqian were like Zhu Huntang, Qin Yinan and Lu Chang'an would have to work harder to correct him. When Lu Chang'an felt that Zhu Huntang had a mental problem, Qin Yinan still struggled to explain that Zhu Huntang was actually very smart, and was naturally good at persuading others to sell themselves and count money for her. Now Zhu Huntang not only inherited Lu Chang'an's power, but also transformed. Qin Yinan can't wait to push Lu Chang'an down in the kitchen right now and exchange cooking skills. It's really urgent. I'll turn into a sheep and show you. Zhu Huntang became more energetic and stopped slapping Lu Chang'an. Seeing Qin Yinan's expression, she felt happy. You know how powerful I am. Don't think that your Lu Changqian will be able to do it when he is born. Inherit Lu Chang'an's various abilities. Zhu Huntang ran out of the kitchen. Qin Yinan hit Lu Chang'an with a backhand and followed him out. Why are you hitting me? Lu Chang'an felt baffled, but he had already found some fresh pigtails and some braised pigtails in Qin Yinan's kitchen, and his attention quickly returned to business. Qin Yinan likes to eat pigtails, especially homemade pigtails as snacks. Last year, Qin Yinan planned to get Lu Chang'an to claim his identity as Yechinayu. Lu Chang'an stayed vigil at her house and pretended to be someone else to scare her. She recognized him because the pigtail she cooked left a taste in his mouth. Lu Chang'an planned to slice the fresh pigtails and fry them, and then grill the braised pigtails. It is rare to see roasted pigtails nowadays, mainly because the price of pork goes up and down, but the price of pigtails has never come down. With the current price of pigs, a roasted pigtail costs at least 20 or 30 yuan. Maybe not much profit. Pigtails must be eaten happily by people with good teeth. Otherwise, there is not much meat and it is difficult to chew, making eating unhappy. Of course Lu Chang'an has good teeth. When he eats pigtails, he usually bites the tail bones into pieces and eats them. Qin Yinan had already prepared some pigtail snacks, and was not in the mood to care how Lu Chang'an made the pigtails. She hurriedly followed Zhu Huntang, and walked into the bedroom only 2 steps later, and saw that the human Zhu Huntang had disappeared. A shiny white head with long and short hair, like a lamb that had just been scooped, was emerging from Zhu Huntang's princess dress, and was kicking off the pumpkin pants and stockings that bound her lower body. Qin Yinan stared at the scene in stunned silence. The lamb shook its body. Judging from its proud look with its head held high and its forehooves spread apart, it was clearly Zhu Huntang. The more shocked Qin Yinan's expression became, the more excited the lamb became. It bleated twice and jumped up and down in the bedroom. One moment he jumped on Qinyanen's bed, kicking the pillows everywhere, the next moment he got into the bed, got in from this end, got out from the other end, and then jumped on the table to read the books. When he discovered that Qinyanen actually had some high-level exercises, he bit into it without hesitation, and then the sheep's hoof scratched and pulled it to the ground. After it jumped off the table, it bit Qinyanen's radiation-proof clothing, tore the radiation-proof clothing off her body, bit it, and swung it around in its mouth. "Zhu Huntang, you are a dog," Qinyanen couldn't help but cursed, raised his hand and hit it, almost like crazy, reminiscent of an overly excited husky. It simply refreshed Qinyanen's perception of cute creatures like sheep. "Lu Chang'an just warned you not to fight with me. If you weren't worried that I would kick you against the wall and dig you out, why don't you think I'm going to fight back?" Zhu Huntang jumped up and down and spun around in circles, completely unfazed. Taking Qinyanen seriously, she felt that she was invincible now. Even though Qinyanen has superpowers that even diamonds may not be able to break, Lu Chang'an can obviously break them. Otherwise, how could Qinyanen become a dragon spirit pot hooligan? Since Lu Chang'an can break it, of course Bai Iya can also do it. Zhu Huntang is already the third master of Zhu Fenglai sword sect after Lu Chang'an and Shang Guandandan. "Come on, try to fight back," Qinyanen was gearing up, but she still didn't believe it. She was also an elder of the 9 provinces Fenglai sword sect. Zhu Huntang was just an ordinary member of the gang, and had been expelled twice. She reluctantly became a saint protector. She also had to become a party member to be upgraded to a saint, on the same level as Zhou Dongdong. Saints generally have symbolic meanings and reputational status, while elders have real fighting power. For example, the 9 Pockets elder of the beggar clan can exercise the power of the gang leader at certain times, and can also learn the dog beating stick method. Zhu Huntang jumped left and right in front of Qinyanen, eager to try, but before she could launch her attack, Qinyanen reached out and grabbed the sheep's head. "Hey! You attacked me sneakily." Zhu Huntang struggled quickly, but Qinyanen took the opportunity to hug Zhu Huntang, put his arms around his neck, and pressed the lamb under him. "Ha ha!" Qinyanen couldn't help laughing and let go of Zhu Huntang. "Stop making trouble, I'm a pregnant woman, and I won't make trouble with you. Will you become a sheep and not anything else?" Zhu Huntang didn't intend to really fight with Qinyanen. After all, he was already capable of beating Lu Chang'an. What if Qinyanen's fragile belly couldn't withstand his own power? Although Lu Qianqian is Zhu Huntang's competitor, Zhu Huntang is absolutely unwilling to hurt Xiao Qianqian in this way. In the future, she will take Xiao Qianqian to learn how to bleat and play together. Do I need to be able to change into someone else? This is the universe. I am the origin of the universe. Even Lu Chang'an is just my mount to fly in the universe. Zhu Huntang arched Qinyanen's chest. Even if he turned into still can't do without this supreme enjoyment. If your breasts were as swollen as your ambition, I would call you the supreme breasts of the universe. Qinyanen sat on the floor and touched Zhu Huntang's body. When she touched the sheep's belly, Zhu Huntang turned over and exposed her belly for Qinyanen to touch. "What does it feel like when my best friend turns into a pet for me to masturbate?" A question that ordinary people couldn't answer came to Qinyanen's mind. "Go and get me a medium-sized plastic bag," Zhu Huntang said with his eyes closed comfortably. "What are you going to do? Don't you know I'm a female? Do you want me to run around naked?" "Ah! I have baby diapers here. I think they are better than your plastic bag," Qinyanen suddenly thought. "Give it to me, I'm still a baby," Zhu Huntang said, twisting and turning. Qinyanen went to get the single package and took it apart. It just happened to cover the lamb's private parts, which was very useful. Zhu Huntang was wearing diapers, so he jumped up and down to find Lu Chang'an, asking him to see if he looked like a baby now. All kinds of requests, 1,000 monthly tickets are available now.